Samantha Reynolds, a haughty young woman from a wealthy real estate family, believed that money and power could bend any rule. But one fateful first-class flight, marked by her arrogant insults toward a black flight attendant, set off a chain of events that turned her world upside down. As smartphones captured the truth and public outrage surged, Samantha was forced to confront a profound question: could she redeem herself, or would she drown in the contempt of an entire society? This is not just a story about a single act of wrongdoing, but also an emotional journey of individuals who dared to stand up for justice. Before we begin, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy inspiring stories like this one, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss out on more compelling content. Samantha Reynolds strode through the Dubai International Airport with the air of a queen. Dressed in an elegant Versace gown and carrying an expensive Hermes handbag, she drew every gaze in the terminal. But these weren't looks of admiration, they were glances of quiet disapproval from those around her. The young woman, with her wavy brown hair, porcelain skin, and piercing blue eyes, exuded an unmistakable aura of arrogance. As the only daughter of a millionaire real estate mogul, Samantha believed the world was there to serve her. "First class, please." "Hurry up," she barked at the ticket checker, her voice dripping with authority. The staff member lowered their head, hastily complying. Samantha glided past the waiting line of passengers, ignoring the dissatisfied stares aimed her way. As she entered the first-class cabin, leaving behind the chaos of economy, Samantha felt she was exactly where she belonged. To her, first class wasn't just about comfort, it was a space reserved for people like her, where she expected nothing less than the service she deserved. After settling into her seat, Samantha scanned the cabin with a critical eye. Most of the passengers were accomplished business people or wealthy couples. However, her gaze stopped when Jasmine Carter, a black American flight attendant, approached. "Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Jasmine. May I get you anything?" Jasmine smiled warmly, her voice gentle and professional. But Samantha didn't return the smile. Instead, she gave Jasmine a once-over, as if evaluating whether this woman was worthy of serving her black coffee. "Don't make me repeat myself," Samantha said curtly, her eyes fixed on her phone. Jasmine blinked, forcing herself to maintain a polite smile. "Yes, ma'am. I'll bring it right away." As Jasmine walked away, Samantha smirked and picked up her phone to call a friend. "You won't believe this. The kind of people they hire to work here is absolutely disappointing. First class, and they let someone like that serve." Jasmine soon returned with a steaming cup of coffee, placing it carefully in front of Samantha with the same polite smile. "Here's your coffee, ma'am." Samantha took a sip, then slammed the cup down on the table. "What is this? You call this first-class coffee? It's lukewarm. Do you even know how to do your job?" Jasmine, trying hard to remain composed, felt a flicker of hurt in her eyes. "I apologize, ma'am. I'll bring you a fresh cup immediately." As Jasmine walked away, Samantha let out a loud laugh, ensuring the nearby passengers could hear. "Exactly what you'd expect from people like her," she muttered deliberately, loud enough for others to catch. When Jasmine returned, this time with a freshly prepared cup, Samantha looked even more annoyed. "This is taking forever. Do you think I'm sitting here to wait all day for coffee? You've got to be kidding me." Jasmine took a deep breath, keeping her tone steady. "My apologies, ma'am. I hope this cup meets your expectations." But Samantha had no intention of stopping. "You should really consider finding another line of work. Clearly this job isn't for you," Samantha said, her voice dripping with contempt. A few passengers nearby began to whisper. One of them, Richard, a middle-aged businessman, cast a disapproving glance at Samantha. "Ma'am," he spoke up in a calm but firm tone, "you should show some respect to the staff. She's doing an excellent job." Samantha turned sharply, her eyes full of defiance. "And you think you have the right to tell me how to behave? I paid for first class to be served properly, not to be disappointed." Jasmine said nothing, quietly turning away, her eyes clouded with embarrassment. It wasn't long before Samantha pressed the call button again. Jasmine approached, this time with a wary expression. "Oh, it's you again. I need you to explain why the service here is so terrible," Samantha said loudly, her voice booming through the cabin, drawing everyone's attention. Jasmine responded, "Ma'am, we strive to provide equal service to all of our passengers." "Equal?" Samantha scoffed, letting out a dry laugh. "Equality is a concept for people like you. I don't need that. A flicker of hurt flashed in Jasmine's eyes. But before she could reply, Samantha added with a sharp tone, I'll make sure you don't work here any longer. Samantha leaned back in her seat, smug with the belief that she had asserted her power. She didn't notice the judgmental stares from the surrounding passengers, nor the quiet observation of the head flight attendant. In the galley, Jasmine stood against the wall, trying to hold back her tears. A storm of sadness and anger brewed inside her, but she knew she couldn't let it show. Meanwhile, Samantha gazed out the window, completely unaware that her actions had set off a series of events that would soon spiral out of her control. As the plane cruised steadily through the sky, the tension in the first-class cabin was palpable. After a short phone call to a friend, Samantha pressed the call button for the flight attendant once again. Jasmine appeared, her professional demeanor intact though her eyes betrayed a hint of weariness. Do you need anything else? Ma'am, Jasmine asked softly. Yes, I do, Samantha replied with a mocking smile. I don't see the hot towels being served. Is this first class, or do you think I'm sitting in economy? Jasmine calmly explained. We distributed hot towels as soon as the flight took off, ma'am. I can bring you another one if you'd like. Exactly. And don't let me down this time, Samantha replied, staring at Jasmine as if she were completely incompetent. Several passengers began to show their dissatisfaction with Samantha's behavior. Richard let out a quiet sigh, while a younger passenger nearby shook their head in disapproval. Yet no one intervened, at least not yet. When Jasmine returned with a hot towel, Samantha still refused to stop. She picked up the towel, shaking her head in frustration. Too cold. How can you even work here with such incompetence? This time, Jasmine couldn't remain silent. She took a deep breath and spoke, her voice calm but firm. Ma'am, I'm very sorry if our service hasn't met your expectations, but I must ask you to maintain a respectful tone. Samantha froze for a moment, stunned that a flight attendant would dare speak to her like that. Then she let out a loud laugh. Respect? What are you thinking? You're just a servant. Your job is to make me happy, and I'll make sure you won't be working here for long. Jasmine tried to stay composed, but Samantha's insult pushed her to the edge. Before Jasmine could respond, Samantha suddenly stood up and shoved the hot towel into Jasmine's hand. You think I'm joking, Samantha shouted, her voice ringing out in the quiet first-class cabin. Jasmine took a step back, unwilling to escalate the situation further. But Samantha stepped closer, raising her hand and slapped Jasmine across the face. The entire first-class cabin fell into a stunned silence. The lead flight attendant, a middle-aged woman named Linda, quickly appeared after hearing the commotion. What's going on here? Linda asked, her voice commanding. Jasmine held a hand to her cheek, trying to stay calm. Before she could speak, Samantha raised her voice again. This woman has been disrespectful to me from the start. I demand that she be fired immediately. Linda looked from Samantha to Jasmine, her eyes pausing for a moment to notice the red mark forming on Jasmine's cheek. Mess. Reynolds, Linda said, her tone icy. I need you to sit down immediately. We will address this situation, but violence is not acceptable on any flight. Violence? Are you defending your employee instead of your passenger? Samantha snapped back. Do you even know who I am? Do you know who my father is? Linda responded calmly. I don't care who you are. Your behavior is unacceptable. I'm asking you to follow the rules of this flight, or I'll have to call the captain to intervene. Though still fuming, Samantha reluctantly sat back down, her eyes blazing with defiance. The other passengers in first class began whispering amongst themselves. An elderly man seated nearby spoke up. Ms. Reynolds, you've gone too far. We all saw what happened. I think you owe her an apology. Samantha let out a scoff. Apologize? I don't owe anyone an apology. Do you think you have the right to teach me how to behave? A younger passenger sitting near the window had quietly recorded the entire incident. The atmosphere in the first-class cabin grew more tense than ever. Linda led Jasmine to the back of the plane to help her calm down. Placing a comforting hand on Jasmine's shoulder, her eyes were filled with empathy. Are you okay, Jasmine? Linda asked. Jasmine took a deep breath, trying to stop her tears from falling. I'm fine, she said, though her voice was still trembling. But she can't keep getting away with this. Not to me, and not to anyone else. Linda nodded. I'll be reporting this to the captain. We'll handle it as soon as we land." Meanwhile, Samantha remained in her seat, staring smugly out the window. She had no idea that this incident was just the beginning of a series of consequences she could never have imagined. Not long after the situation had calmed somewhat, Linda, the lead flight attendant, entered the cockpit to report the entire incident to Captain Robert Mitchell. The seasoned captain, a middle-aged man with years of experience, furrowed his brows as he listened. "We can't let this continue," Robert said firmly. "Safety and respect are paramount on any flight. I'll handle this personally when we land." Linda nodded but couldn't hide her concern. "Captain, Samantha Reynolds is a VIP passenger. Her family is very influential." Robert sighed deeply. "Influential or not, her behavior is unacceptable. We have to stand by our values." Back in the first-class cabin, the tension was palpable. Samantha sat with her legs crossed, scrolling through her phone as if nothing had happened. But the other passengers had begun to lose their patience. A middle-aged woman, Karen, who was seated next to Samantha, turned to her with a look of sheer outrage. "Do you think being wealthy gives you the right to do anything you want? Don't you feel ashamed for acting this way?" Samantha raised an eyebrow, letting out a mocking laugh. "Do you think I care about your opinion? Clearly, you don't understand my class." A young businessman sitting in the row ahead turned around and said, "Mom, we've recorded everything. If you think you can get away with this without facing consequences, you're mistaken." Samantha snapped her head toward him. "You think doing this will defeat me? You don't know who my family is. I'll make all of you regret this." Her words only fueled the anger in the cabin. Several passengers began to raise their voices, demanding that the flight crew address the situation. In the crew's rest area at the back of the plane, Jasmine sat quietly, her eyes distant. Linda placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Jasmine, you're not alone. I and the rest of the crew stand with you. Her behavior will not be tolerated." Jasmine managed a faint smile, though her heart still ached. This wasn't the first time she'd faced discrimination, but this incident was particularly painful because it happened so publicly. "I just don't want this to happen to anyone else," Jasmine said, her voice breaking. After several hours of flying, Captain Mitchell decided to address the situation personally. He walked into the first-class cabin and stood directly in front of Samantha, his expression calm but commanding. "Ms. Reynolds," he said firmly, "we've received multiple complaints about your behavior on this flight. I need to remind you that violence and discrimination are unacceptable." Samantha tilted her head back, smirking. "Are you here to threaten me? Do you even know who you're talking to?" "I know exactly who I'm talking to," Robert replied without flinching. "And I'm asking you to treat the crew and passengers on this flight with respect. If you continue this behavior, I'll be forced to report you to the authorities upon landing." For a brief moment, Samantha was at a loss for words, but she quickly regained her arrogant demeanor. "Do what you want. I'll make sure you never pilot another flight for this airline." Robert didn't respond. He simply gave a curt nod, his expression resolute, and walked away with unwavering determination. As the plane began its descent, the tension in the first-class cabin was palpable. Many passengers glanced at Samantha with disapproving looks, but she seemed entirely unbothered. Jasmine emerged from the cruise area, doing her best to stay composed. When she caught the warm, supportive gazes of a few passengers, including Mrs. Karen and Mr. Richard, she felt a small sense of relief she wasn't alone. When the plane landed, Captain Mitchell made an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, to ensure order and safety, we will be asking a few passengers to remain on board to speak with airport security. We appreciate your cooperation." The announcement made Samantha pause momentarily. Still, she maintained an outwardly calm demeanor. As soon as the plane came to a stop, several passengers quickly uploaded videos capturing Samantha's behavior to social media. The first comments began to flood in. "Unbelievable. Who does she think she is to act like this? Samantha Reynolds, the millionaire's daughter? We can't let this get swept under the rug." While Samantha remained smug, confident in her power, she had no idea that a storm was already brewing from the phones of first-class passengers. Samantha was detained for questioning by airport security while the public outrage began to grow. Captain Mitchell and the flight crew stood firmly in defense of Jasmine, but the battle was just beginning. Would Samantha's family influence shield her, or would the strength of truth and justice prevail? After being detained at the airport for questioning, Samantha felt humiliated. She wasn't used to being in a position of weakness and decided she had to restore the respect she believed she deserved. As soon as she left the airport, Samantha called her father, William Reynolds, one of the most powerful real estate moguls in New York. "Dad, I just went through the most humiliating experience on that flight. A useless flight attendant disrespected me in front of everyone. You have to do something." William, despite his fondness for his daughter, hesitated. "Samantha, incidents on flights are handled very seriously. Are you sure this is something we should intervene in?" "You don't understand," Samantha snapped. "If I let this go, the whole world will think I'm weak. You need to call your contacts at the airline and make sure she gets fired." William sighed but eventually agreed. His connections within the airline industry were strong enough to influence senior management. Just a few hours after Samantha arrived home, a call from the airline's management office was made to Jasmine's team. Jasmine Carter, the manager's voice, came through the phone. "You are being temporarily suspended pending an investigation into unprofessional behavior on your recent flight." Jasmine froze in shock. "I don't understand. What did I do wrong?" "A first-class passenger has filed a complaint alleging that you were unprofessional and disrespectful. We will hold an internal hearing next week. Until then, you are suspended from duty." Jasmine placed the phone down, her hands trembling. She knew this wasn't a fair action but the result of Samantha's influence and power. Unable to work, Jasmine returned to her small apartment, feeling powerless and humiliated. She gazed at a photo of her mother on the table, her eyes searching for comfort. "Mom always taught me to be strong," she whispered. "But this time, I don't know how to get through it." In the days that followed, Jasmine received little support from the company. A few colleagues sent her messages of encouragement, but most remained silent, afraid of getting involved. Her financial resources began to dwindle, and the stress from the investigation caused her to lose sleep night after night. Not only was she worried about herself, but the shame of having her reputation tarnished weighed heavily on her. Meanwhile, Samantha was delighted to hear that Jasmine had been suspended. "I told my dad everything would be fine. She thought she could stand up to me." "Ridiculous," Samantha said to a friend over the phone. She felt triumphant, believing she had regained her power and control. Life returned to normal for Samantha. She appeared at lavish events, smiling for the cameras, unaware that public opinion on social media was starting to shift in Jasmine's favor. On social media, videos capturing Samantha's behavior during the flight began to circulate. First-class passengers also spoke out, recounting the incident and expressing their support for Jasmine. One of the videos included the caption, "This is how a millionaire heiress thinks she can treat others. It's time we said no to this kind of injustice." A wave of outrage erupted online. Hashtags such as "Justice for Jasmine" and "Stop Entitled Abuse" started trending. One passenger even wrote an email directly to the airline. "I witnessed the entire incident. If you discipline Jasmine instead of protecting her, I will never use your services again." Jasmine, initially hesitant to go public with her story, eventually decided to share it on social media. In a heartfelt post, she wrote, "I am a flight attendant, and my job has always been to ensure the comfort and safety of passengers. But on a recent flight, I was insulted and threatened by a powerful passenger. I am not perfect, but I do not deserve to be suspended for simply doing my job." The post quickly garnered thousands of shares and comments. Many expressed sympathy for Jasmine and condemned Samantha's actions. At the airline's headquarters, the management team noticed the intense backlash from the public. An emergency meeting was convened. "We can't let this go on. If public sentiment turns against us, the airline's reputation will take a severe hit," one director stated. "But we've been under pressure from the Reynolds family," another added. "We need to make the right decision. If Jasmine can prove her innocence, we must stand by her," someone else argued. Samantha began to feel the pressure from social media, but she stubbornly believed that her power could suppress any resistance. Despite the injustice she faced, Jasmine started to feel a glimmer of hope from the community's support. She decided to prepare thoroughly for the upcoming hearing, confident that the truth would come to light. In the days following Jasmine's post, Samantha started noticing unusual changes. Her phone vibrated constantly, not with invitations to events as usual, but with a barrage of critical messages and calls from journalists. A major news outlet published an article titled, "Millionaire Heiress Reynolds' Abuse of Power on a First-Class Flight." The article included video footage of Samantha's behavior on the flight, recorded by passengers. The comments beneath the article fueled the public's outrage. Shameful to think money can buy decency. If the airline doesn't address this, I'm boycotting immediately. Furious, Samantha threw her phone onto the table. They don't understand who I am. This is just a misunderstanding. Dad, you have to help me fix this right now, she shouted at William Reynolds. Even William began to feel the pressure of public opinion. Some of his business partners started avoiding him, and the stock price of Reynolds real estate showed signs of dropping due to the spread of negative news. Meanwhile, Jasmine received a small but meaningful piece of good news. Several passengers from the flight, including Mr. Richard and Mrs. Karen, agreed to testify on her behalf at the upcoming hearing. I can't stand by and watch you be treated like this, Mr. Richard said over the phone. You did an excellent job, and her behavior was completely unacceptable. Jasmine was deeply moved, but she knew that wasn't enough. She contacted her lawyer and began compiling all the evidence she could, including the videos and passenger testimonies, to counter Samantha and the pressure from the Reynolds family. At the airline's headquarters, the upcoming internal hearing became a focal point. A meeting among senior executives was held in preparation for the hearing. We've been under tremendous pressure from the Reynolds family, but public sentiment is siding with Jasmine. If we handle this poorly, the airline's reputation will be ruined, said the PR director. I've seen the video. Ms. Reynolds' behavior is unacceptable, another executive added. We need to be fair to Jasmine. If we're not, we'll lose both our employees and our customers. After much debate, they agreed that transparency and fairness were the highest priorities. The day of the hearing arrived. Samantha appeared with her lawyer and a representative from her family. She maintained an arrogant demeanor, confident that her power and influence would see her through. Jasmine sat on the opposite side, while a panel of 3 members presided over the hearing. Samantha's lawyer began by placing the blame on Jasmine. My client was disrespected and received subpar service during the flight. Ms. Carter not only failed to perform her duties but also acted in a manner unbefitting of someone in her position when dealing with such an important passenger. Jasmine remained calm and presented her side of the story. I did everything I could to serve professionally. But Samantha's behavior crossed every line. I did not deserve to be insulted and assaulted on the flight. When the video footage recorded by passengers was played, the room fell silent. The images of Samantha slapping Jasmine and her derogatory remarks left the entire panel stunned. As the hearing continued, other passengers spoke out on social media and in the press. A video interview with Mr. Richard quickly went viral. I witnessed the entire incident. Jasmine is a dedicated employee, and she does not deserve this injustice. Under pressure from the public, the airline released a temporary statement. We are committed to conducting a fair and transparent investigation into the incident involving Ms. Jasmine Carter and Ms. Samantha Reynolds. The results will be made public as soon as possible. Public attention didn't stop at Jasmine. People began digging into Samantha's past and uncovered multiple instances of her abusing her power to intimidate and manipulate others. One story from an old schoolmate of Samantha's surfaced online. She forced me to do her homework throughout the school year. When I refused, she threatened to have me expelled. Samantha always used her power to get whatever she wanted. The Reynolds family started to realize the situation was spiraling out of control. William Reynolds attempted to contact journalists to cool down the story, but all efforts failed. After several days, the hearing panel reached a verdict. Jasmine Carter was completely exonerated. Samantha was banned from flying on all of the airline's flights, and the case was referred to authorities for her assault. The airline issued an official statement. We extend our deepest apologies to Ms. Jasmine Carter for the harm she endured. Her position will be reinstated immediately, and she will receive appropriate compensation. Jasmine broke into tears upon hearing the news. Although she knew she was innocent, she hadn't expected the truth to prevail so swiftly. Samantha, once a powerful and confident woman, was crushed by the weight of public outrage. Her family faced immense pressure as they struggled to deal with the fallout. Meanwhile, Jasmine returned to work with renewed confidence and overwhelming support from the community. For Samantha, however, this was not the end. Her arrogance hadn't been fully extinguished, leaving room for potential twists in her story. After the airline announced Samantha's flight ban and public backlash reached its peak, Samantha no longer felt her usual sense of self-assurance. The media continued to publish articles, many of which unearthed her past misdeeds. William Reynolds, Samantha's father, began to feel the profound impact of the scandal. A major business partner announced they were canceling their contract with his company to avoid being associated with Samantha's controversy. The Reynolds real estate stock plummeted, prompting a series of emergency meetings within the company. Samantha William roared inside their lavish mansion. "What have you done? Now, it's not just you they're against. People want to destroy our entire family." Though fear gripped Samantha deep down, she maintained a defiant attitude. "I didn't do anything wrong. This is all because of those jealous people out there." Her mother, Evelyn Reynolds, tried to calm the situation. "William, I'm sure we can hire lawyers or PR professionals to fix this," but William shook his head. "No one wants to touch this anymore. They know Samantha is in the wrong. Now we have to face the consequences." Refusing to accept defeat, Samantha hired a team of lawyers and public relations specialists to try and salvage her image. She posted a video on social media, attempting to appear remorseful. "To everyone, I want to apologize if my actions on the flight made anyone feel hurt. That was never my intention. I'm human, and sometimes I make mistakes." But Samantha's apology backfired. The online community saw it as hollow and insincere. "She's only apologizing because she's afraid of losing money. Her behavior isn't a one-time mistake, it's a long-standing habit." Some social media users even created memes mocking Samantha, further tarnishing her already damaged reputation. On the other hand, Jasmine received overwhelming support from the public. Not only was her position reinstated by the airline, but she was also appointed as the face of a new campaign, Respect on Every Flight, a program promoting mutual respect between passengers and crew. Jasmine appeared in an interview with a prominent magazine, where she shared, "At first, I just wanted to defend my dignity. But I realized that my story isn't just about me, it's about fighting against injustice in all levels of society." Her words resonated powerfully, turning Jasmine into a symbol of strength for those who feel powerless against authority and privilege. Public opinion wasn't the only thing Samantha lost. Her once close friends began to distance themselves. At a glamorous party she attended, those around her either looked at her with pity or disdain. Samantha, once the center of attention, was now the subject of hushed whispers and silent judgment. An old friend, Charlotte, approached Samantha and spoke quietly. "Samantha, you need to stop. Sometimes accepting your mistakes is the only way to save yourself." Samantha tried to maintain her composure, but deep down, she felt the weight of isolation growing heavier. Reynolds Corporation lost a major investment in a high-end real estate project as partners withdrew their support. William was forced to announce a restructuring plan to save the company. During a family meeting, William said to Samantha, "We've tried to protect you, but everything has only gotten worse. From now on, you are not allowed to represent the family at any events." Samantha was stunned. She had always relied on her family's protection and backing, but now she was being pushed aside. One day, Samantha received an email from a passenger on the flight. Its tone wasn't accusatory, but rather a reminder. "You were wrong, but it's not impossible to make it right. All we want to see is genuine sincerity from you, not lies to hold on to power." Samantha read the email over and over again. For the first time, she deeply reflected on her actions. She looked back on the past days, from her insincere apologies to the harm she had caused Jasmine. In a rare moment, Samantha felt true remorse. Samantha decided to meet Jasmine in person to apologize. It wasn't an attempt to regain her reputation, but a genuine desire to make amends. "Jasmine," Samantha said as she stood in front of Jasmine's small apartment, "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want to tell you that I was wrong. I'm truly sorry for what I did." Jasmine looked at Samantha, her eyes filled with surprise. After a moment of silence, she responded, "I'm not sure I can forgive you right now, but I appreciate that you came here." After meeting Jasmine, Samantha returned home, unable to shake the feelings of guilt and helplessness that clung to her. She decided to withdraw from all social activities and decline to attend any family events. Each day, Samantha looked in the mirror and realized she was no longer the confident, arrogant woman she used to be. All she saw was someone filled with insecurity and regret. "What do I do next?" she asked herself. One day, Samantha decided to join a volunteer program at a soup kitchen for the homeless. At first, she went just to do something different, but as she interacted with people facing hardship, she began to understand that the world didn't revolve around her. An elderly homeless woman said to her, You may not have much compassion now, young lady. But when you help others without expecting anything in return, your heart will start to change. Meanwhile, Jasmine's life gradually got back on track. She received unwavering support from her colleagues in the community. The Respect on Every Flight program, where she served as a representative, had a positive impact. Jasmine was also invited to speak at a conference on fighting discrimination, where she shared her story. Life is like a long flight. We carry not just physical baggage but also biases and emotions. Yet, if we choose respect, the journey becomes lighter for everyone. Her speech received a long-standing ovation. Jasmine was no longer just a woman who endured injustice, she had become a symbol of resilience and dignity. One day, Samantha sent an email inviting Jasmine to a charity event she had organized. In the email, Samantha wrote, "Jasmine, I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I hope you can see that I'm trying to become a better person. If you're willing, I'd be honored to meet you again at this event." Jasmine read the email, feeling the sincerity in every word. She decided to attend. At the event, Samantha approached Jasmine, her hands trembling as she held a small envelope. "This is a donation for the Flight Crew Support Fund. I want to start here," Samantha said, her eyes filled with earnestness. Jasmine smiled gently. "I don't know where your journey will take you, but at least today you've chosen the right path." After months of public and market pressure, William Reynolds decided to change his business strategy. He shifted the company's focus to affordable housing projects to support communities rather than concentrating solely on luxury developments. "Samantha taught me that we can't live forever relying on power and wealth without considering our responsibilities," William admitted during a press conference. The Reynolds family gradually regained their reputation through meaningful contributions to society. Samantha also earned her father's trust again, but she was no longer the arrogant person she used to be. At an event focused on gender equality and fighting discrimination, Samantha and Jasmine appeared together on stage. Jasmine shared her story, and Samantha spoke about her journey to redemption. "I was wrong, deeply wrong. But my biggest mistake wasn't just how I behaved on that flight, it was living my entire life without seeing the people around me. Jasmine taught me not only about patience but also about compassion. And today I stand here to say this: we always have the opportunity to change." The audience rose in applause not for Samantha, but for the profound lesson she had conveyed. Samantha returned to her life with a completely different mindset. She no longer used power to impose her will, but instead learned to listen and respect others. Jasmine continued her work with a lighter heart. She forgave Samantha not because Samantha deserved it, but because Jasmine believed she deserved to live without the burden of resentment. Life is a series of lessons, and sometimes the cost of those lessons is what helps us realize the true value of compassion and respect. The story of Samantha and Jasmine isn't just about power or injustice, it's a profound reminder that every action, no matter how small, carries consequences. We can make mistakes, but what truly matters is how we face them and make amends. Let this story inspire all of us to live with empathy, fairness, and humanity. If this story has touched your heart, don't forget to share it and spread this message to more people. Together, let's build a world where respect and justice are fundamental rights for everyone. Thank you for joining us.